So, one of the things that happens for many child victims of abuse is that they decide they do not want to be parents, that they do not want to do to another person what was done to them, what happened to them. And especially if you have parents that had personality disorders or mental health challenges, if you've got personality disorders and mental health challenges, and it's just a very rational decision to decide, hey, I don't want to even remotely chance this. This is not a person that I want to be. But what ends up happening is that unintentionally, those particular victims of abuse cut themselves off from some very great information, which is parenting information. So, parenting, at its most core, aside from teaching someone how to physically do things, you're teaching them how to think. And parents, the things you say on repeat, ad nauseum, ad infinitum, become what are the default thoughts in another person. So, for example, like I'll say to my son, I'll say something like, well, anything is better than no thing. When we're talking about picking up our room or doing something around the house, just like just a little something is better than nothing. And so he's said that back to me. Well, anything is better than no thing. And so it's kind of wild to see it, but that's our parents become our inner voices. And so when you understand that, and then you understand like how you're supposed to talk to children, it can really help you in how we talk to ourselves. It can help us reparent ourselves. And so if you've decided to go the no child route or to be child free, you might have missed out on like kind of this great information. So one example that I really love is like you don't tell a child they're bad. You might say, hey, that was not your best option. Or, I think we could make better choices here. Or, hey, that was like a bad choice, right? Like putting the emphasis on the action instead of the person. And more coming from it from a problem solving perspective than a shaming perspective. And so as you, it's a really interesting experience when you've been a child victim of abuse and you are talking to your child in a very different way than your parents spoke to you. And it can kind of like help to flip that, not just speaking that way to our child with grace and care, but also to ourselves. So one thing that I know that I do differently than my dad did is I don't freak out when something bad happens. So you'll see this, a lot of child victims of abuse have a freeze response, and then they might become parents and they start freaking out over, if their child breaks something, for example. And that's because we often had a parent like absolutely jumping on us for breaking something. And so there's this like pre-programmed, anxiety that shoots up. You're in fight or flight, you're in a stress response, right? So with my son, I'm walking him through. You pause, like if you drop the glass and it's shattered, like you're in the kitchen and the glass is everywhere. And okay, so stop, pause, look around, right? Because it's dangerous. There's glass everywhere. Don't want you walking around on it, cutting yourself. So like stand still, stay calm, call for an adult. If you don't see an adult, if you happen to be in the house by yourself, so he's 12, so like, occasionally we'll like run to the store and, he's old enough to kind of be on his own. If you're by yourself, do your best to get out of the kitchen, walk where you're stepping, and get out. And then we're going to problem solve about how to clean up the area. So like you call the adult and the adult comes and then, we start that process. And it's different than having someone jump on you. And now your cortisol is elevated, your adrenaline is going, and you're afraid that you're going to get in trouble or get beaten or whatever. And as someone who's accidentally been through multiple life-threatening experiences, the ability to stay calm when something is happening, like you cannot, that is, that cannot be overstated. The second you lose your emotional center, you are now no longer able to like think proactively, productively, um, in a way that's problem solving. So one of the ways to teach that to your kids is like when something happens, you don't jump on them. You say, okay, pause, right? Now let's look at what we need to do to get this cleaned up. And I'm not saying I'm a perfect parent. I personally really dislike if people treat my things without respect. So, I'm not saying I'll never get mad. Like, the last time he did it, he snuck chocolate into my bed with my nice sheets and my blankets and fell asleep and it melted. I was like, I was like, this is you. First of all, what you're gonna do is you're gonna take these sheets off the bed and you're gonna spray them with Shout and you're gonna wash them. Like you're making more work for me. Or one time he came in, it was snowing, and I said, hey, listen, remember to, like, please take off your shoes so you don't track a bunch of, stuff in the house. Like 5 seconds later, he just starts walking through the house, and I'm like, you're just making more work for me, buddy. So I'm not saying you have to be like the most perfectly chill, calm parent. Like they should know. Like if you act a certain way, like people aren't gonna love it. But at the same time, we're trying to be teaching them how to think, teaching them how to think about problems, and also personally, I don't want to raise a kid who is very oblivious to other people's labor on his behalf. Like, let's not make more work for people if we don't have to. Breaking a glass is that's an accident. We all have accidents. But, getting into my bed with melty chocolate, that's different. We did not make our best choice there. And again, you can see the language. Like, let's talk about it. Let's fix it. Let's problem solve. Let's do what we can. And I'm not one of these people that thinks like shame is totally bad. There are times we should feel shame. Like if we hurt somebody, we should feel that. And that feeling can help us not do it again. But there's a difference between, oh, I'm feeling this feeling within myself, and another person shaming you, making you feel that way like your parent. So there's kind of a line you walk as a parent. But what I wanted to say is that there are ways to talk to yourself and to learn to talk to yourself that are more kind and caring and compassionate, more understanding that you're learning, more understanding that you're growing. Again, I say this so often, it is a battle for your mind. If you're looking at things from a secular perspective, usually you'll hear people say like, oh, anxiety lies, depression lies, or, like we have intrusive thoughts or something comes in. And so, particularly if you're the kind of person to ruminate, especially if you think that the thought that comes into your brain is your thought, and then you start, spinning your wheels on it, it helps to realize like not all your thoughts are yours. Some of them are programmed from like your childhood years, and some of them just like pop in, because we take in a lot of media. We see a lot of like we see way more media than anybody in the history of mankind. We see more people, we see more stories, we see shows. Like this is, so the fact that something pops into your brain that's not yours, completely makes sense, quite frankly. So, you just want to put those thoughts kind of over here, and you can approach them from like a kind parent perspective, which is okay. This is not a choice we're gonna make, or this is not a thing that I'm gonna do, or I don't think I want to support this, or whatever the thing is. So just if you have never looked at parenting resources, they can be surprisingly helpful for reparenting the self and laying a different framework for your thoughts, the way you think about things. And this is a slow process. It happens over time, like any kind of learning. It happens incrementally, and that's okay. You don't feel like you have to do everything all at once. But I hope this makes sense, and I'll talk to you next time.